Well, all right, guys, we got some stuff to talk about here today. This is the last day of decent weather, so I really thought I better get out. So I cranked up some loads this morning and came out. I've got about 33 degrees, cloud cover, no wind. It's humid, it's cold to the feel. Starting tomorrow, heavy weather's supposed to be prevalent for maybe up to a week. So could be a while before I get out again. So a couple things. One is, I think I mentioned in a previous video in Little 7, this Starline brass that I had been using, new brass, really had and maybe it was just in a comment back and forth between a viewer, where I mentioned there was really high variability in the neck tension when I was seating the bullets. And also a lot of variability when I sized the brass and how it went through the die. I noticed that right away, and I thought, yeah, that's unfortunate. But I went with it anyway and got to thinking more. Maybe that's been stealing some accuracy, some precision from us. And I don't know. So take a look at this little video. I'll jump in here. I mentioned that 150 Precision Hunter ELDX was hard to chamber. Well, look what happened when I tried to size it. I'll put that in right here. Guys, do you see that little bright line, little bright mark on each one of these cases? This is the once fired brass from this Precision Hunter 150 ELDX, and I think I've mentioned to you guys that it's been hard to close the bolt on these factory loads, and these haven't been accurate at all. Well, this morning I went to size this once fired brass, and these basically, I have to put so much leverage into these in the press. It's ridiculous. I just stopped. Something's not right with this brass. And over here, I've got, this is also Hornady brass, once fired from a different factory load. This is from, I don't remember what the load is. Just I can look here really quick. It's the American Whitetail. And these size like brass should size, right? Normal pressure. So there is something really off with Hornady's product here on this particular brass and factory load. So that's really interesting, because I had other once fired Hornady brass that sized and reloaded just really easily, really like it should. Okay. So now I'm all wondering what's going on with all this brass. So today we're running Hornady brass, once fired, came from factory loads. And we're going to see if that has any effect on velocity, accuracy, repeatability. So what I've got here is I brought 2 loads with me today. We're kind of going back to that sweet charge of Stayball 6.5 that we got a half MOA load or group with the 160 Spear. So I brought some of those. And then I brought everything the same except 162 Hornady interlock boat tail soft points. And I've just sent 3 groups of the Hornady. Now I will say, I'll show you those groups in a second. I will say that in between the last range trip and this range trip, I took the scope off to check the tightness of the bases and everything. So I had to re-zero. So that's why you'll see them a couple different places on the target. And I also have some velocity outcome that was interesting. Cloudy day like this, the chrono works. I was at 2690 with these 162 Hornady boat tail soft point interlocks. And that's a little bit lower than I figured. I figured we'd be in that 2730, 2740. So that could be the case. Maybe that could be the brass. We're using Hornady instead of Starline. All right, let's look at these groups. So these three are the first three. This was the first one, and then those two, and I don't know in which order. And then I sent another group. I knew my scope was going to be jack, like I said, so I just moved everything down to here. That's about 1.5 inch group. And then here is the third group. Those were the first two, and then this one. And everything felt really good. So those are all losers. So here's what I'm thinking. We did have one sub 3/4 MOA group with those Hornady 162s. And, but I think I've probably shot 6 or 7 groups of those. And other than that group, I've never really come close to a sub MOA, much less 3/4. So that might have been a fluke. But those are just not really performing well out of this rifle. Different charges, different brass, kind of getting the same outcomes. This 2 in, 1 out, I'm not, we're okay on that, guys, because it's not happening in that order necessarily with all the shots. I had 1 out, then 2 in on that first group. So that bullet may not be what this rifle's looking for, boat tail type configuration. We'll keep playing with it. Now I have the 160 Spear hot core back to that sweet charge of stay ball where we got the half MOA group, and the only difference is now Hornady brass. And I noticed a huge difference seating the bullets. When I seated them in the Hornady brass, they all felt the same, smooth. When I seat them in that Starline brass, there's a ton of variability. So I think that's interesting. We should be cool. I'll send some of those hot cores. We'll see if the velocity changed over the Starline brass and if it dropped as well, like it did on those 162s. Here we go. Well, I just shot 4 of the 160 Spear hot core. The velocity dropped a lot, and I don't know the chronograph, if I trust it or not. It should be getting really good readings today, and it should have been the other day, but it's dropped around 100 feet per second. It's into the 2640s, and we were 27, pushing 2740 with this exact load with different brass. So you guys tell me, can brass affect 100 feet per second? I'm guessing it can. I've never seen that big a variation, but I'm sure it can. That's pretty crazy. The 4 that I shot are a mess, probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So I'm gonna let it cool. I have more of these. We'll put another group or 2 down there and see, but we've had maybe a lie this whole time, guys, with this brass. And maybe any good group we've had has been just a coincidence. And we may be kind of back to ground zero with starting out with different brass. I wish that darn Starline wasn't so inconsistent on neck tension. I really feel like that's stealing accuracy from us, and maybe that's creating higher pressure. They're hard to seat, and maybe that's creating higher pressure, and that's why we're getting higher velocity with that brass. Love to get your thoughts on it. We'll cool, and we'll send some more hot cores, and we'll go down and have a look at the target. Hey guys, there's the 4-shot group of the 160 Spear hot core, and they were 1 high, 1 low, 1 high, 1 low, so they weren't like grouped in chunks of 2 there. So that's a loser. It's really looking like this brass is a big factor here on what's going on. I'm still trying to digest all that. I'm gonna fire another group or two in here and see what happens, but I'll be shocked if we get a good group. It'd probably just be luck. Well, guys, we're back to square one. This one's from just after dismounting my scope. This is this morning, just getting it dialed back. Then these other 5, the 2 in the black target and the 3 up there, are a 5-shot group of the 160 spear hot core. Well, I'm starting to think that any good groups we've had were just coincidence, because they're just not, I can't duplicate them. And breaking 2700 was tied to that Starline brass. Can't get it with Hornady brass. These 160 hot cores were a little faster than the Hornady 162s. There's the 160 hot core. That's falling, you know, what, 30, 60, 70 feet short of what we were getting out of the Starline brass. But they were still well short of 2700. So this is all quite interesting. Never really had, I don't know that I've ever had anything like this happen before. So I'll be curious to get your thoughts on it. I think while I'm still out here, I'm gonna send a group of that Norma whitetail 150s. That's always seemed to be fairly consistent from this rifle. But yeah, it's a head scratcher. I think maybe it's time to regroup, and maybe it's time to get away from this stay ball 6.5. Well, maybe that was a false hope with it, and maybe it's not all that accurate. I've had good luck with ball powders over the years, but I've also had some mixed results with ball powders and found them to be a little bit tougher to work with. So maybe that's next, is we just move away from stay ball 6.5 for a while, try some other powders, and we'll regroup here a little bit. Let's see what these Norma whitetails do, and then we'll wrap it up. Well, there's those 3 Norma whitetails. Wow. Hey guys, I think we're in a redo mode here for Project Little 7. You know, one of the things I've never done on this channel is to sugarcoat or fake out outcomes or whatever, edit. It's just raw what it is, you know. And the truth is that we've just had maybe some false outcomes here. So I want to talk about a few of those and what I'm thinking. One would be, you know, we're not achieving velocity that we thought we were achieving. So what are the variables there? So the chronograph could be a variable. Maybe we're getting inaccurate results. The brass, we switched brass and velocities went down. So that could be a factor. It's the same rifle. So those are factors on velocity. We're also not getting the accuracy we thought we'd got, or that we'd appeared to achieved in the past. So were those a fluke? We're not duplicating that. What's changed there? The brass changed today. And the velocity appears to have changed. So those could be affecting accuracy. Well, there's a couple thoughts I have. One is, you know, I've been using a lot of Hornady bullets. And the main reason is, and I think I've shared this, that's what's available in my area. There's not a whole lot else. There is some, but it's pretty sporadic. Weights I don't want, or weird bullet types that I don't necessarily want. So I'm gonna get dialed in on that. We're gonna get some Sierra, some Barnes, some Berger, some Nosler. We're gonna get that mail ordered in to give us some better variety there. Powder. We've really kind of just focused on the Stayball 6.5. It seemed so promising. Those velocities were great. We saw some small groups, but we haven't been able to duplicate that. So I'm thinking of stepping away from Stayball 6.5 and playing with some other powders. This morning, it's so funny, I almost put together a load with IMR 4350 and these 160s. Some of my older load data shows some great velocities with that combination. You know, ball powders can have mixed results. I've had good luck in the past with some ball powders, Winchester 748 and 760, but maybe I need to look at some other options here. And then brass, like that Starline brass, just a lot of variability when you size it in the neck, the friction, the amount of force needed to run it through the sizing die. And then when I seat bullets with the Starline brass, there's a wide variety of friction there on the seating as well. So I can tell the neck tensions are all over the place. That's probably been a bigger factor in both in accuracy and velocity than I had. I kind of had it in the back of my mind, but I guess I was just kind of moving forward. And then this Hornady brass is a little sketchy to me also. That you saw earlier in this video, I put in a clip of some weird stuff going on there. So maybe I'll grab some Peterson or some Norma, and we'll just kind of do a little reset here, guys, and see if we can get regrouped and keep moving forward. I mean, it is what it is, right? We're dealing with reality, and we'll just keep bearing down. Like I said, the weather I think is going to change, so maybe this gives me a chance to get some of that stuff ordered, get it in, and go back to the drawing board.